All right, welcome back. This week's segment of the week is our Audible. If you guys don't know how this one works, Kadin and I have selected a team, or I guess it mostly is a team at this point. A team that has made a decision or is currently making a decision, and Caden and I have to decide what we would do for that team, how we would audible their decision makings at the line of scrimmage for the rest of the season or their future in general. So, what do we have for this week?
This week, we're going to be doing an audible for the Dallas Cowboys, a team that we didn't really talk about this week because they had a bye in the past week, but there's a lot of news surrounding the Cowboys. So, should we jump into it? Want to bounce ideas off of each other? Because obviously, they're struggling right now, offensively and defensively. Last year, they were one of the best defensive teams in the NFL, and as well as offense. And this year, their defense is one of the worst, and their offense can't really do anything aside from CeeDee Lamb, who has also struggled. So, what would you say to do offensively or defensively? Take a side.
Ooh. Let's see. I guess I will start on the offense, and we'll address the defense in a second, because the defense does concern me slightly more just because of how good they were last year. But on offense, I'm going to say that for the offense, you need to make a trade. You need to make a move to acquire a player. And I think that the type of player you need to acquire needs to be a running back. I think that that's kind of their biggest glaring hole right now, is the fact that you are trotting out Ezekiel Elliott as a quote-unquote viable option as a running back, and he is 8,200 years old, so that's not the greatest move in the world. And I think that like having a more viable option at running back is going to open up the pass game a little bit more. I think at the moment teams kind of know, like, okay, if you run it, it's not too big of a threat, but if you pass it, that's where you're going to get us, because CeeDee Lamb's going to burn us over the top. So I think making a move for a more viable running back would be a good start for the Cowboys at this point in the year.
Yeah. And I think another option is also wide receiver. Their options right now are CeeDee Lamb and then Jalen Tolbert, who's not, he's not bad, but he's not a dominant bona fide wide receiver too. If you look at a lot of teams right now, the Bills just went and acquired Amari Cooper. The Jets just went and acquired Devontae Adams, and now the Chiefs with D-Hop. There's so many players that are available right now. Cooper Kupp is available. Deontay Johnson. So many great wide receivers. Adam Thielen. So many good wide receivers that you can go get for cheap. All these great wide receivers are going for third or fourth round picks. That's not hard. That doesn't cost you much to acquire. Go, and you didn't spend anything this offseason. You have the money, you have the draft picks, you have the assets. Go get a receiver. Go get one of those superstars that's available at the trade deadline, as well as go get a running back. Your offense needs much upgrades. And then we can flip it around to the defensive side of the ball. They had Dan Quinn the last 2 years, and he was dominant on the calling the plays for that defense. He obviously left. He's in Washington now, and Washington's amazing. They have Mike Zimmer now as their defensive coordinator. Their defense is not the same. It's struggling. They need to maybe go ahead and maybe not make some big trade, but definitely change their scheme up more similar to what Dan Quinn's was. You're obviously not going to have the same scheme as you had with Dan Quinn. Different coaches have different schemes, but this one is clearly not working with that defense, and Dan Quinn's was. So don't make it the exact same. I know that's not realistic, but make it a little more similar, because this one is clearly not working.
Yeah, because like you said, obviously, I don't think a trade on the defense is really what you need. I mean, that defense is really, really the same as it was last year in terms of personnel. And so going out and acquiring another linebacker, another defensive back, like that's really not going to do too much for you when this defensive unit that's supposed to be insane isn't performing well. So I think what you said with either changing the scheme or changing who calls the plays or anything really, changing anything about what you have on the defense right now is going to be an upgrade.
Yeah. But It's definitely going to be interesting to see how they play it because they're in a very competitive NFC East with Washington, obviously, and then Philly is always going to be up there and them. So they expect to try to be in the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes and what the next couple of weeks look like with the moves they make before the trade deadline.
Yeah. And real quick, obviously, these are the decisions that we would make if we were the GM, if we had any role in the Cowboys organization. But I think that one of the best things that the Cowboys could do that will never happen is replace their GM. I mean, Jerry Jones has not been a great GM for years at this point. For some reason, he keeps trotting out the same team that he has every year. He never makes big trades. He doesn't make big signings.
Hey, Austin, you better stop talking because we're going to get fired by Jerry Jones. I don't know if you saw, but the Cowboys radio, they were dogging on Jerry Jones and they were dogging on the Cowboys. And what does Jerry Jones do? Instead of going and making moves, he fired some radio hosts. Bro has too much of an ego. But so you should stop talking before we get fired by Jerry Jones.
Good news, we don't get paid by Jerry Jones. But if he wanted to pay us,
we don't get paid at all.
If he wanted to pay us, I would not be too mad about that. I'd glaze the Cowboys every day if that's what he wanted.
Very true.
All right. So obviously, if we were the GMs of the Cowboys, we would make a trade for a wide receiver, make a trade for a running back, change what we're doing on defense schematically, or fire Jerry Jones and replace him. But that's not super possible. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode. Make sure that you're following us on all of our platforms on Instagram, K_football, on YouTube, K_A football, so that you can catch everything that we're putting out for you guys. We appreciate you for watching, and we will catch you next week for week 8.